when he receives the revelation from the Archangel Gabriel, okay, he recites the passages, and there are these people, the companions around him, 25, 30 people, and those are the ones who are recording those revelations, whatever they had at the time, okay? The stones, the bones, the tree branches, the tree leaves, okay? So they are recording those revelations. While the Prophet Muhammad was dictating, okay? While the Prophet Muhammad was reciting these passages. And they are not only recording those revelations, but at the same time they are memorizing those revelations. Okay? And since the revelation was still going on, the revelation kept coming, it was not complete until the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Right before his death, according to tradition, the revelation was complete, the Quran was complete, okay, and then I don't know how many weeks later, how many days later, the Prophet Muhammad died. And then after his death, the people collected these materials, again the stones, whatever they had, the bones, the tree branches. And after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, the Quran became a book. The Quran became a codified book after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Okay? In terms of the structure, as I said, Bible means books. It means that there are books in the New Testament, there are books in the Old Testament, so it's like a library, okay? But there are no books in the Quran. There are these what's called the surah, 114 chapters, 114 sections, or 114 portions, or 114 parts, okay? So these chapters, these surahs, they are divided into ayat. This is the Arabic word for verse, like the biblical verse, okay? And it means pointer, it means a sign. Ayah means a sign. Ayah means pointer. Point to what? Point to Creator, point to God. The Quran talks about the creation. The Quran talks about the creation of animals. The Quran talks about the mountains, rivers, plants, honeybees, spiders, okay? But eventually, all the passages, they point to the Creator, they point to one God, according to Quran again. Each surah, each chapter, each portion begins with the Basmala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the all merciful, the all compassionate. Okay, this is what it means. So each chapter begins with that phrase, begins with that sentence. And the verses and the chapters do not follow a chronological order. So the Quran does not begin with the creation story. It doesn't begin with the creation of Adam and Eve. It doesn't talk about the creation of Adam and Eve. Of course it does, several times in many places, in many chapters. But again, there is no chronological order. Okay? And the passages and the chapters, they are not arranged subject-wise. For example, there is a chapter called Abraham, but not the whole chapter talks about Abraham. There's a chapter called Muhammad, but not the whole chapter talks about Muhammad. There's a chapter called Women, chapter 4, but not the whole chapter talks about women. There's a chapter called Day of Judgment, but not the whole chapter talks about Day of Judgment. Okay? And this is just one picture of the Quran. So this is one Arabic, again, Arabic from right to left. As you can see, this is the page number, so it goes from right to left. It's here. But you see, these are the verse numbers, one in the blue, So it goes from right to left. So one verse, another verse, another verse, another verse, another verse. So there are verses that have only 3 or 4 words, and there are verses like half a page or a whole page. Hadith. So you have the Quran, the first authoritative source, as the word of God, and we have the Hadith. This is the teachings and the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. You have the Quran as a divine book, and then you have the Prophet Muhammad, who is not a divine person. Okay? Quran, Hadith. Quran, the Prophet Muhammad. Okay? It refers to his deeds, his saying, his actions, his teachings, and each hadith, each narrative, each report has 2 parts. The first part is the chain of transmitters or the chain of transmissions. Okay? I heard this from such and such person, and that person heard it from such and such person, that person heard that from such and such person, it goes back to the Prophet Muhammad. This is the chain of transmission or the chain of transmitters. And then the second part is the statement of the Prophet Muhammad. This is what he did and this is what he said. When you look at the hadith, and we are not talking about just one book here, we are talking about dozens of books, dozens of collections, dozens of compilations, and thousands of reports, thousands of narratives. Okay? It's not just one book. Believe in the prophets. This is another thing that Muslims have to believe in. All prophets, without making any exception. There is no difference between Adam and Jesus. There is no difference between the Prophet Muhammad and John the Baptist. There is no difference between Zechariah and Joseph. They are all prophets. And the same passage that you saw before, the Muslims are speaking, we make no distinction among any of them. So they are all prophets. And these are the prophets that are mentioned by name in the Quran. Look at the names. Yes, as I said, Islam is not a new religion. You have Adam, you have Enoch, you have Noah, you have Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Lot, Jacob, Joseph, Jethro, Job, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Zechariah, John the Baptist. But of course, there are distinctions in terms of the attributes of prophets. Who is a prophet? What does he do? From Islamic perspective, all prophets, they are 100% human being, but at the same time, they are infallible. They are sinless. They don't commit sin. Okay? So this is a spiritual perfection. And at the same time, there is this physical and biological perfection too. So you cannot see any biological, the shortcoming and biological injury, I would call it. On their bodies. For example, they are, all of them, they are the most handsome man, okay, or woman. Okay. So we have these 25 prophets. According to the tradition, according to the hadith, according to the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, there are thousands of prophets since Adam. So between Adam and the Prophet Muhammad, there are thousands of prophets, but only 25 of them are mentioned by name in the Quran. And then the last belief, the Muslims have to believe in the Day of Judgment, the Doomsday. There will be a resurrection. This is not the resurrection of Jesus, but the resurrection of all people. So the Quran talks about this afterlife in many places and many chapters. I would say the 1/3 of the Quran, 1/3 of the Quran is about afterlife and the Day of Judgment. And there are descriptions of hell, there are descriptions of heaven. There are descriptions of purgatory in a sense. Okay? And then just a Quranic passage, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. So no one, again, from Islamic perspective, no one has got the ticket to heaven. Everyone will be judged. Whether Muslims, whether Christians, whether atheists, whether agnostic, Hindus, Taoists, Buddhists, Native American religion, African religions, all the people, since the time of Adam, billions of 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 people will be judged. Okay? So this is what Day of Judgment means for Muslims. Before the Day of Judgment, I believe this is the very last slide in the first section. There are some major signs. The Quran doesn't talk about these signs, not very much, but just again, I just wanted you to see the similarities, okay, between the Christianity and Islam at least. So you have the Antichrist, again, you have some other major signs before the judgment day, before the destruction. If you have seen the movies, I don't know whether you watch the movies or not. Independence Day, the day after tomorrow, the apocalypse, or 2012, okay? So these are the things that will happen before the destruction. Like we have the Gog and Magog. Okay, we have the same thing in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament. That's another sign. There will be an earthquake, 3 major earthquakes. There will be a fire. Again, most of them are not in the Quran, but are in the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Again, the second authoritative source. And guess what? Muslims believe in also the second coming of Jesus Christ. Okay? So according to Muslims, remember what I said, Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, that's the key in Christianity, not in Islam. For Muslims, there is no crucifixion of Jesus, there is no resurrection of Jesus. What happened? He was basically taken up to the heaven. He was saved by God. Again, in a simple, I just want to explain it in a simple manner. He was taken up to the heaven, and he didn't die. He is still alive, and he will come back before the day of judgment as the Messiah, and he will chase the Antichrist, and he will kill the Antichrist, and he will be living on this earth happily ever after until the doomsday, and he will die again. I mean, not again, very first time, eventually. For Christians, second time. That's it for the first session. I said 1:30, 1:25. Okay, I'm doing good. Any questions so far? Come on, no questions? Yes, sir. Yes.
I don't know how this works, but you had the list of prophets, and you said there was no difference between them.
Yes, in terms of prophet.
And Jesus was a prophet.
That's correct.
Okay. Were all the rest, Jesus in your Quran has a virgin birth. Did all the rest of them have a virgin birth?
No, just Jesus.
Well, you had them on that list.
Yes.
And you said this list of prophets are all the same.
Yes.
Okay. And yet Jesus in the Quran has a virgin birth.
Yes.
And goes to heaven without dying. He wasn't crucified.
I didn't say that.
No, I know, but the Quran says it.
No, he doesn't say that either.
You want the verse and chapter?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll show it to you then.
Okay.
But it says that he went to heaven without dying, just like Elijah.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Did the rest of those prophets, were they all virgin births and went to heaven too?
No, just Jesus. But he didn't go to heaven. What do you know by the heaven? If you are talking about this heaven as the final destination, no, that's not the place. He was taken up to the heaven, to the side of God. He didn't die. He will come back.
Yeah, okay, but none of the rest of those prophets died either?
No. I mean, they died, of course, eventually.
Okay, well, you said they were all alike. And that way, that seems to me that they aren't all alike.
Jesus will die too.
Jesus was different.
Jesus will die too, I said, before the day of judgment. All people will die. All human beings will die. And Jesus is a human being for Muslims, so he will die too eventually before the doom.
Okay, but he hasn't yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. He's
But
alive.
has Abraham died then?
Yes.
Okay, then they're different.
He will die too.
He hasn't yet. He has already. Abraham has died.
There are some Muslims, however, I could say that there will be no second coming of Jesus. Jesus died already in the heaven. There are some Muslims who believe that too. Now they are equal.
Fatih, what do you mean by they're all the same?
As a prophet, as a chosen by God, sent by God, sent the Creator, all of them are equal in that sense.
So, not exactly the same as far as what happened to them, but they're all chosen by God.
All chosen by God, all of them receive some message, some revelation from God, from the Creator. In that sense, they are equal, yes. No, I have not. I don't have enough money.
I just asked him if he's made the Hajj himself personally.
No, not yet. Yeah.
You mentioned that there was 4 different caliphs or successors.
That's correct, yes.
Who would that be today?
Who?
Yes.
None.
Isn't there one passed on to another?
For Sunni Muslims, it was done after Ali. Okay? Even though the people kept using the title Khalifa or the Caliph, even the Ottoman period, historically speaking, that caliphate ended in 1923 with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. 1923.
And then
Go ahead, please.
isn't there a Ba'ath belief also?
For Shia Muslims, that caliphate will come back again. So again, depending on the Shia Muslims, so there are these 12 Shia. So there are these 12 Imams, 12 religious leaders who came from Ali, or who came after Ali. Okay? And the very last Imam According to one tradition, when he was at the age of 8, according to one tradition, he was at the age of 87, according to one tradition, when he was in prison, he just vanished. This is like 6, 7, 8 sort of. And he will come back before the doomsday as the Mahdi, as the Muslim savior. M-A-H-D-I. M-A-H-D-I. Muslim savior. This is what Shia Muslims believe. And they believe that that Mahdi will be working with Jesus Christ against the Antichrist. But for Sunni Muslims, Ali was the last righteous caliph or the caliph. As I said, people kept using the term. During the Umayyad dynasty, Abbas dynasty, this is after the 4th Khalifa. The Ottoman sultans, the Turkish sultans, they kept using the title Khalifa, the caliph, just to control the Muslim community in the world. Okay. There was this lady back there at the table.
Took a few notes, sorry. When you were talking about the pilgrimage to Mecca, I was curious, how long does it take one to prepare once you're actually in there to cleanse yourself and get ready? And then how long does it actually take one to pray?
The pilgrimage, I would say that's 5 days. It's like a scavenger hunt. So there are certain things that you have to do, there are certain places that you have to visit, and with a certain limited time period. Okay? And that's 5 days. So on, let's say on Monday, there are certain sites that you have to visit. On Tuesday, there are certain things that you have to do. On Wednesday, on Thursday, I would say 5 days in Mecca.
Okay.
And for the prayer, it really depends on you personally. It really depends on the passages that you will recite. You might be reciting only 7 passages from the Quran. You might be reciting 10 passages from the Quran. Sorry, 10 verses from the Quran. You might be reciting one whole chapter from the Quran. So it may take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. It's up to you.
Okay. Also, when you guys are celebrating Ramadan and you are doing your praying, or when you pray every 5 times a day,
Yes.
and you talked about also preparing yourselves to pray for that, how long does that take?
You mean the preparation?
Yeah.
A few minutes, just again washing the face and the hands and the arms and the feet, just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Lady,
One more?
yes.
Who's got?
The Quran was written over 23 years. By the
It wasn't
companion.
written, it was revealed over 23 years.
Okay, was it by Muhammad?
It was revealed, not written.
To Muhammad?
To Muhammad, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And does the Quran, like the Bible, includes the Torah, the Psalms, the Gospel? Does the Quran include all of those things or just those revelations?
Certain passages. So there are passages, for example, I have a very simple example, the 10 Commandments. It's in the Quran, okay? But not the whole Torah. Certain passages from the New Testament, certain passages from the Old Testament, certain passages from the Psalms.
So do you use those books also? I mean,
No,
the
not
Torah-
separately. No, not separately.
just the Quran.
Yes, the
There
Quran.
are some parts
Yes,
that are
yes.
included.
As I said, so this is how Muslims see the Bible that we have, that we use. They see it as a translation of the original Bible. So there is no distinction for Muslims, any translation of the Quran and the Bible that we have, because they are both translations for Muslims.
Do Muslims read the Psalms, the Torah?
It's not separately. No, I don't think so. And they have, I would say the most Muslims, they don't even know how many books are there, you know, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament. Most Muslims wouldn't know. One more.
I'd just like to say that the Bible talks about Jesus. We know about his life and that he was crucified resurrected, and that's our hope of salvation. Seems like we're hearing another gospel here, another Jesus, another something uncomfortable.
Thank you, Fatim. Go ahead, Pastor Kate. We're going to have a break.